Hey everyone, you're with Mind Body Solutions and the MBS crew. This is one of our students, Poppy, and one of our students, Sue. All right, so in this video, we're going to be exploring the importance and the role that reference plays in the MBS approach. Now, I've said this before, that mind enters the body through reference. What I want to do is say some things about how deep that idea is, right? So there's a great line by Geetha Iyengar that says that a conflicted mind is knowable and a calm mind is unknowable. Now, if you think about that for a second, see, we are always in our method trying to teach all the limbs and the depth of yoga through asana. And if you think about that for a second, that's also perhaps why Patanjali in Yoga Sutras is talking about slowing down the oscillations of mind. Because as the mind stops its judgment and slows down its activity, there's an unknowable dimension of experience. The mind, though, is participating in asana and trying to get its reference back through the body. So if you think about reference and mind enters the body through reference, when you're practicing asana, you're going from the unknowable beginning, which in our method, we think that every pose begins with relief or a quieter state, right? And you're transitioning into where the mind can get traction in its experience. Because remember, part of our method is that the mind is the organ of disconnection. That is both its strength and its weakness. So when we say something like the mind enters the body through reference, there's a whole bunch of unpacking to do, a whole bunch of depth on which that's based. So reference for us is a crucial part of our method. And there are two forms of reference, right? There's reference that has physical touch and reference that has non-touch. Now, we're going to make a video on each. And I realize in the yoga landscape right now, the use of physical touch is in transition. Now that there are pros and cons to using physical touch and not, but the fact that there are contexts within your yoga teaching and within your own practice in which touch is not going to be available or a good idea. For example, in a mental health care setting or with a particular class of people with more extreme PTSD or trauma. So whether you employ touch or not is up to you. You have to make your own peace with whether and how you're going to use reference with touch. That's what this video is going to be about, and the other one's going to be about non-touch. So for us at Mind Body Solutions, I believe that when you have students that are unable to do certain things, remember our method is based on wanting to help facilitate students feeling yoga poses from inside out. That's, in my mind, the number one goal, because I want everyone to feel like they belong with yoga. So there are times when someone can't move or can't do certain things. They're not going to get the same experience if they don't get the sensation of the body living in more spaces or the sensation of certain types of movement. So for us, we believe that reference with touch, mind entering the body with touch, is an essential form of our method. And if you weren't to use touch, this is our belief now, right? And my belief, in some ways, not using any touch, I think discriminates against a student who lives with certain neurological deficit. That doesn't mean that there aren't issues that surround the use of touch. So if you do decide to do yoga in a way, or teach yoga, or in your own practice in a way that uses physical touch, you have to figure out all the ways to create conditions of safety. And how you do that is definitely on you. We also want to say that here, there are also going to be audio sessions that travel alongside of these video sessions. So some of these ideas and concepts will be revealed more deeply or explored more deeply in audio context. So with Poppy, we're going to explore the use of reference a form in which the mind gets to feel an object, in other words, a sensation, in order to locate itself in space, in order to know both interoceptively, inner awareness, and proprioceptively, outer awareness, comes through the introduction of reference. So in standing positions, we're going to turn and show some reference on the back of the sternum. Remember, a lifted chest is in every yoga pose. And your mind's ability to realize the subtlety of that comes in many forms. So Poppy, turn towards me. Amy's going to come in from behind. Put your feet a little closer together. If you don't feel safe, put your hand on the chair. And so relax the hand down a little bit, right? So you got to get that space, but I want you to push down through your feet and lift up. So you're actually expanding the sensation of grounding and expansion. And Amy's going to come behind her and support. Are you going to go down on your knee?
First I'll start off in the standing position, but as you can see, this is a little bit awkward for me. So because of the height difference between Poppy and myself, I'm just going to come down with the one knee, and that makes it a little bit easier for both of us.
So she starts to receive. So I'm trying to help Poppy and facilitate what it feels like for her to receive. The mind, again, enters the body through contrast, through reference. So Amy's going to pull it away, and Poppy's going to feel what she feels when she's not supported there. So when it comes a second time, her mind is ready and prepared to know what's going to happen. So again, you try to follow that, Poppy. So again, reference around the spine is rarely going to be a bad idea, especially if it's a light touch. And then it's going to go away, and you're going to sit there and still stay big and stay expansive, right? So now, good, and then release. And so turn and face forward again. We're going to take the arms and legs wide. So now, in this reference, we're again going to try to help Poppy's mind by creating sensation/input into the brain, get a better sense of her container. We've already touched her feet. We've touched the back of her sternum. Amy's now going to come up behind and touch the tips of each shoulders. Again, you're trying to delineate interoception and proprioception, inward and outward awareness. So the reference, you use that, Poppy, to go down through your feet, up through your head, and then broaden across the collarbones and open the space between the shoulder blades, and try to touch harder into her shoulder blades without arching your back by opening the space between your shoulder blades, not reaching here. So you're opening that space, moving it into her hands, hitting down through your heels. Again, trying to help Poppy fill the vessel and expand in every direction. Now stretch out to the top of your head too. There we go. And you naturally inhale because that makes intuitive sense. And then slowly release. Now have it on your own. Go to the fill the vessel to the outer edges of your body. Use the memory of the reference in order to go in every space. Now soften the inside of your mouth. Feel strong in your heels. Stretch out to the top of your head and fill the vessel. Good. And then release. So on this next one, we're going to have her take her arms and legs wide. We've done this on a couple of the videos. But remember, the sensation of expansion is one of the sensations we want someone to feel. The sensation of grounding and the sensation of expansion. Now, Poppy's really physically strong. In order to get through her life all these years, she's had to go literally and not metaphorically over mountains through her life, right? And so feet are pointed forward, thighs are rotating out. She's feeling length from the side waist to the side armpit, out through the underside of the arm. Obviously, one arm moves differently than the other. What Amy's going to do now is support underneath the upper arm. So regardless of if she can straighten that arm, she gets the sensation of relief that allows her to extend that arm differently. And we don't even care if she extends it physically. We want her to get the sensation of where her ankles are, where her hips are, where her elbows are, and her wrists from the sensation of relief. Now, once Amy doesn't support, again, we're showing by contrast, her muscles have to engage, they have to grip, and she has to wrestle with gravity with her strength. And then here it comes again. So this next time, Poppy, you're really trying to receive, and she naturally inhales because that's a good student. Now, feel the grounding in your body, the strength in your body, and with expansion out through your limbs, through the top of your head, down through the floor, fill the whole room. Expand into the whole room. Good. And then it's going to be your own now. Amy's going to step away. Keep filling the whole room. It's a little bit harder, isn't it? Good. And then release. I hate to tell you, but we can't live life very well completely alone. That's why I think reference with touch is sometimes really important. The other thing that reference with touch does is deepens the sensation of connection from inside to out. So now we're going to transition into reference in seated Tadasana mountain pose. And remember, mountain pose is down, a mountain is down, and it's majestically high, and it creates a sensation of grounded expansion. So these are sensations that we want to have and try to help facilitate in our students. With Sue here, we put a couple of blankets behind her so her spine gets reference and is brought forward into her body so she can be more straight up and down on her sitting bones, because otherwise the cushion's going to be soft and she's going to fall back a little bit. So as we start the instructions for Tadasana, first without references, I want you to feel your feet, right? And especially a little bit more awareness towards your heels. Feel your sitting bones. And now hit down through your sitting bones, lift up through your chest, but don't stop with your chest. Go above, extend beyond the top of your head. So we're going to quick give an extra reference because we want to do it on our own. And then what reference does is show the mind where the container of the body is, because that input into the brain from the reference, from the touch, will actually help. So first we're going to put the hand on the top of the head or close to the top. You can touch for a second and then slightly move away from it and Poppy reach up into that, right? So hover above her head a little bit, right? Now hit down through the sitting bones, rise up, right? And now they're going to release that and touch the tips of the shoulders. So again, we're trying to give horizontal and vertical reference. So the grounding of the mountain, so hit into that, no, but hit into the touch from making more space between the shoulder blades. In other words, from the midline out to the tips, because we're all better at moving the tips of the outer edges of our body, not from inside to out. So now remember that sensation, feel the touch on the top of the head, go back to the top of the head, right? Touch, and then hover away from it and reach up into that. There you go. And now hit down, rise up, fill the whole room, ground on your sitting bones, feel your feet, and connect from inside to out with strength to the whole room. So this type of reference would help any student, not just an adaptive student. Good. And then release. So in this pose, we're also going to try to do some more reference on the feet and on the knees. So remember, in our method, we're trying to facilitate sensations, right? And subtle sensations that aren't just overtly physical, that combine different layers of our nervous system into the experience. And it turns out the sensation of up, from the earth up, is not an easy one to recreate unless you've felt it over and over again. And so what we do to try to get Tadasana, the mountain, the top side of the mountain, is we try to facilitate and help grounding in the bottom part. So Amy's going to come around with Poppy. Bethany's going to come around with Sue. They're going to kneel down. And we've done this in another video. We're going to articulate, push, but the hand lightly, hands at the sides. Hands at the sides if you Sue it. Yep. Sue and Poppy, right? Because I want the experience. As the upward rise, I want the hands at the sides so you can extend down at the same time. So Amy's going to place her hands lightly on the knees with her fingers above the knees, and with the heel of her hand and the palm of her hand pushing into where the reflex point is, push in. So you can already see Poppy start to fill the vessel, right? I'm going to add a slight level of sensation just because I'm here and it's accessible. I'm going to touch lightly between her shoulder blades to show her the subtle body. Now Sue is using the blanket to get that touch. I'm just trying to show subtlety, reveal. We believe in reference, touch that reveals, not touch that corrects. So we're just trying to reveal here, and then it goes away Because remember, the brain takes input. The mind only basically learns better from loss. So try to feel the difference when they're not helping both of you, both Sue and Poppy. Here it comes again. Now, as the reference comes, seriously, don't waste it. Now you know what's coming. Use it into your own sense of your own yoga pose. The grounding, the movement of energy up through the core, the extension, the broadening between the shoulder blades, the extension of the arms down, lift under the collarbones, feel your sitting bones, feel your feet, make it all true. And then the reference goes away, and it's your pose. And because you've had this extra reference, your sensation of breath will be slightly easier because the empty space is part of the inhalation and exhalation. So now we're going to transition from seated Tadasana to seated Trikonasana, triangle pose. But before we do, I want to reiterate a deep point about the use of reference, especially for students that live with neurological distinctness or are neurologically divergent, right? Is that because what the information the mind is getting from the brain, from body to brain to mind, is coming in unequally, it's incredibly difficult for a person that's got the physical challenges to integrate the sensation of the more quiet part of the nervous system, because there's so much struggle happening on the outer body. So the use of reference as you start to make the poses more complicated, changes of gravity instead of being in line, different movements, right? Letting the student get there and then support so they can integrate the sensation of ease that is in my opinion, the truer part of yoga. The heart of yoga asana is happening where the struggle is less. You're trying to learn to integrate the struggle into and temper it with ease. So from ease to struggle to pose. All right, so they're being in Tadasana. And remember, there are many forms of reference. You can use your voice. You can also use props. You can do all sorts of things. But we're going to do props, voice, and touch. And also gravity shifts. So you're going to lean over to the right, place your hand, and be smart here, Poppy, with how you use the blocker there. And so you've got a block there. Okay. Move it a little farther away from your body if you can, because I want there to be more of a shift of gravity. I want you to have to explore a different place. There you go. So as she leans over, I'm reminding her with my finger on her skin here to keep the back side of the pose. So I'm going to have Poppy actually touch her own hip here. Right? Same with you, Sue, the back hip, to help you find your base. Remember, your mind thinks it knows where the base is, and then once you get a touch or a reference, you actually get more of it, right? So I want you to now push back on your back femur bone. So push down, try to push here on your femur bone, right? And lift the chest and push down through the back leg, right? And extend up, right? Lengthen your spine. Now, as you lengthen it, now broaden the space between your shoulder blades. Keep connected to your heels. Keep connected to your heels, right? So you're lengthening spine beyond the top of beyond the top of your head. Now take the other arm up, right? And so this is their own pose, right? And this is a good pose. So keep extending and lengthening the spine, Sue, right? Make sure you're staying in the back body. Keep leaning over this way. Don't be sneaking away. Don't want to make it too easy. So I'm reminding her she can stay here. She just the other pose and then come on out of it. So on this next time, come back to Tadasana, right? So you come back to the midline because you're trying to remember the midline on some deep sense is more connected to the unchanging part of asana. Right, and so the unchanging is merging with the changing, and it's in asana it's being explored. The unchanging is trying to be realized through the changing movement and breath being layered. So if you're in Tadasana now, go over to the first side again. So Amy, just help Poppy feel more calm, press down through the hand a little bit, right? I'm going to remind you here, right? So lengthen, there you go. I don't even have to give you the instructions anymore. So you just do what you're supposed to. Right, now take your other arm up. Now what we're going to do is create the sensation of ease. So help the upper arm. So poppy the arms more this way, right? So then hold it, have her hold it by herself so she gets her own baseline. And then touch the upper arm. Now use that, right? And so at the same time, so this is smart. Amy's already adjusting from the wrist to here because she can see her balance is off. And then there's going to be a touch between the shoulder blades, and maybe do with your hand, Bethany, maybe not, but she used the blanket. Feel the blanket back there. Now use that relief to broaden the space, the center of the, there you go, Poppy. This empty space in the center of the chest starts to expand. Feel your base. Good. And then the reference is going to leave. It has to become your pose. Good. And then come on back to Tadasana. Be in Tadasana. We're going to do one more version of it. Remember, and this is one of the keys to our method, like don't worry about as much about all the techniques of trying to reveal as much as the principles that are at work here. So now we're going to have Poppy just take your knees a little bit apart, like as far as they can go. Same with you, Sue, a little bit feet farther apart. Maybe get a block for actually Sue. Right? And then put it between her knees. So all we're doing now is changing reference on her base, right? Which is happening in every yoga pose, right? So she just gets a sense, I don't want your knees quite as close together, right? And so now we're going to do the same pose with a different base. Lean over this way. Ground. There, you're already extending your spine like you're supposed to. Take your arm up, right? Now extend and now help her a little bit. And once the relief comes, help the upper arm, help the arm. Hit down through the back hip, Sue, and back to the back foot. Use the relief here to help you charge through your subtle body out to the back foot, back leg. So now they're in a slightly different relationship with gravity, slightly approximating more of a standing Trikonasana, and getting that expansion through more of her limbs, and then slowly release, and they have to make it their own. And then come on back to Tadasana. Feet together. Pull out the block, Sue. Right, give yourself a break. And then center again at the midline. So now we're moving to some reference with touch while lying down, trying to show different ways to help standing poses, actually. So in Tadasana here, right, so Poppy's going to first stretch out through her heels and all through the top of her head. You can imagine with no reference for Poppy of where exactly her mind can kind of guess where her feet are. Maybe she can push her heels into the floor. Those are all things she can do on her own. Right? But actually what we're going to do is quickly have Amy try to show her where her feet are. Feet into feet for a second. So we're going to do this is a real great reference because we've shown this in other videos, but that allows her to feel what the reference is in her pelvis. So there's a slight rotation in Tadasana at the inner head of the femur bone. So that's just to imprint your memory, right? So, and then Amy's going to release that. So we're trying to show her the floor because in order to extend down when you're horizontal, your mind doesn't know how to do that. So now what the subtle part of the extension, Amy's going to touch lightly on her ankles. Now, when you calm joints, you calm the subtle part of the nervous system, in our opinion, at least. So here's one of those things that I want her to feel, find where it is. And now from that, using that calm, Poppy, stretch out through your heels and the top of your head. And now inhale and take your arms over your head. Now, because she can't take her arms straight, we got the bolster here to make sure she can practice some alignment. Notice there's a blanket underneath here because of the way her hip flexors are. We want a little bit more alignment, but we want the reference. And already we're starting to integrate the non-touch view, we use some props for reference with the actual connection, right? And then take your arms down again. Amy, release. Now do it on your own. remembering the touch, remember the subtlety. Memory, Geetha Iyengar said, is one of those most important attributes of a yoga student. And it's the memory of sensations. The brain is learning to activate and use different sensations, subtler ones, in order to create movement. So she's doing it again on her own. Now this time, Amy's going to be more overt and pull out on the bottoms of her heels. So now we're going to activate even more awareness as she goes the other way, which actually makes space in her hips. This is what she wasn't getting. Length out through the fingertips, touch the bolster, and extend out, feeling that space in the midline. Keep your shoulder blades moving towards your heels, and feel that growth. Feel like you're growing and getting taller. Don't just struggle to get taller. Be calm and connected to get length. This is called Urdhva Hastasana. It's a yoga pose. And then release. And so, Amy, will you just go on the other side? And so now we're going to repeat the stuff, but with more reference on her hands. So now it's important, Poppy, when you get the relief, first she's going to touch the ankles. And obviously, you know, she's got asymmetry in one of the arms because of the CP, right? So we're trying to create calming energy that allows her to feel the relief and expansion of the subtle body, even though the physical body is crooked. So grab the wrists. So Amy's going to look how smooth and graceful Amy does. And she's not gripping and squeezing the wrist. She's creating it open so freedom is left. Trying to help her lengthen. We're not about trying to straighten her arm, right? We're actually just trying to get her mind to realize that there's an easier way than just effort. Now extend out through your heels, and remember when the feet were into the feet, feel the space you got when you pulled on your heels, right, in your hips and in your torso. Use it all, Poppy, and extend from on the back body out through your heels, from the back body up through your hands. Make this a pose, and just because I'm here, I'm going to just lightly touch on the tip of her rib cage, right, to help her ground her diaphragm so she doesn't over effort here. And then make it, Amy's going to slowly release. Don't lose the pose. And then release. So now we're just going to use some reference, some touch, in order to help her feel farther into a couple of standing poses. Now she could do this on her own and struggle, but she won't be able to recruit the subtle part of her nervous system as well unless we give her some support. So Poppy, take your right leg up in the air, straight up towards the ceiling. That's as far as she can go. So what Amy's going to do is support that and bring it up as far as it's going to go. Does that leg go farther, or does the other leg go farther? So she couldn't do that on her own. Her recruitment didn't allow her to do that on her own. So now what we're doing is Amy knowing that if she were standing up and this foot was on the floor, this is Virabhadra Warrior 3, right? She'd be pushing down through that foot. So she's pulling on the heel. So Poppy, you're getting that with one leg up, stretched out to the bottom leg heel. That'd be the leg out behind her. Now take your arms over your head. Don't forget to get that other hand up there, right? Use the bolster. And now extend. So you're going down through the down leg, up through the up leg. Stretch your hands, your fingers away. There you go, right? And then I'm just going to lightly, again, touch here to help. Remember, we do touch that reveals. So that's on the crest of her rib cage because the diaphragm is the intersection of the subtle body and the physiological body. That's a quote from Geetha Iyengar. And if you couldn't touch this, it doesn't matter. If you couldn't do this, it doesn't matter. But watch what happens when she has to do it on her own. She's going to have to hold everything, and everything closes down. She has to, so this is the life she leads every single day. This is the world she confronts. When I said she climbs mountains metaphorically, I mean it literally. Here comes the relief again. Right, and now you gotta let it go completely in there. She had to hold it up herself. That's really hard. Her neck just overfired. You're gonna come back with relief again. Find the pose. Remember, we use reference and we use touch so the student gets the door opened to feel the asana from inside to out. No, well, in the other video, say you could put a chair there, you could do all these other things, and yet there's something more connected from inside to out if you figure out how to use human touch in a way that's safe and okay. And again, it's up to you, if you're a teacher, how you're going to do this, if you're going to do this. But I'm telling you, help your students inhabit their body with both effort and relief and figure out how to do it.